August 4th, 1962, a woman lies dead in her bedroom. The official story is suicide, barbiturates, depression, the tragic end of Hollywood's brightest star. But in a vault in Washington, D.C., 600 pages tell a different story. 600 pages of surveillance, of coded names, of suspected communist ties, and dangerous relationships. The FBI had been watching Marilyn Monroe for years, not because she was famous, not because she was troubled, because they believed she was a threat to national security. What they documented in that file, what they feared she knew, who they feared she was talking to, it changes everything we thought we understood about her death. For decades, those pages stayed classified, buried, protected. When they were finally released, they revealed something darker than Hollywood ever wanted to admit. Marilyn Monroe wasn't just being watched, she was being hunted. Here is the story, Hollywood, 1956. The golden age is in full bloom. Studios control everything, the images, the stories, the stars themselves. On the surface, it's glamour and magic. Beneath, it's a machine, cold, calculating, unforgiving. And Marilyn Monroe is its most valuable product. She's 29 years old, already a superstar. Gentlemen prefer blondes. The 7-year itch. That white dress over the subway grate. An image burned into American consciousness forever. Men want her. Women want to be her. She's the fantasy, the dream. Pure, untouchable Hollywood perfection. But there's a problem. Marilyn Monroe is getting curious. She's tired of playing the dumb blonde. Tired of being told what to say, what to wear, who to be. She starts reading serious books, philosophy, politics. She marries Arthur Miller, a playwright with leftist sympathies, already under FBI surveillance for suspected communist connections. She starts asking questions about the world beyond movie sets and magazine covers. Questions about power, about justice, about who really controls America. And in the paranoid fever dream of 1950s Cold War America, asking questions makes you dangerous. The FBI opens a file. Subject, Marilyn Monroe. Real name, Norma Jean Mortensen. They start watching, following, recording. Every meeting, every phone call, every person she speaks to. J. Edgar Hoover himself takes an interest. Because Marilyn isn't just meeting with actors and directors anymore. She's spending time with people the FBI considers enemies of the state. But here's what nobody knew at the time. Here's the detail that stayed buried until those 600 pages were declassified decades later. The FBI wasn't just tracking Marilyn's political associations. They were building a file that suggested something far more explosive. They believed, truly believed, that Marilyn Monroe had become a security risk at the highest levels of American government, that she knew secrets capable of destroying presidencies, that her bedroom had become a place where pillow talk could trigger international crises. And they were right. By 1962, Marilyn's file has grown to 600 pages. 600 pages documenting her transformation from Hollywood starlet to what the FBI considers a genuine threat. What happens next? What those pages reveal about the last months of her life. It's not just tragic, it's disturbing. The file begins innocuously enough. Early entries from 1955 and 1956 focus on her marriage to Arthur Miller. Miller is already on the FBI's radar, a prominent American writer who refuses to name names during the House Un-American Activities Committee hearings. When Marilyn marries him, she inherits his surveillance. Agents attend their wedding, photograph guests, record license plate numbers, standard procedure for the era. But the reports note something that catches Hoover's attention. Marilyn isn't just a pretty face standing beside her intellectual husband. She's engaged, asking questions, attending meetings. Reading materials the FBI considers subversive. One memo describes her carrying books by Karl Marx. Another notes her subscription to leftist publications. She's photographed at gatherings with known communist sympathizers. In the paranoid calculus of Cold War America, this isn't celebrity rebellion, it's potential espionage. But the file takes a darker turn in 1961. President John F. Kennedy is inaugurated in January. By spring, rumors circulate through Washington and Hollywood about a relationship between the young president and America's most famous actress. The rumors are true. They meet at parties hosted by Kennedy's brother-in-law, Peter Lawford, private dinners, weekends in Palm Springs. And Marilyn, desperate for real connection, starving for someone to see her as more than a sexual object, she falls. The FBI knows. They're watching, listening, and they're documenting everything, but it gets worse. After JFK begins distancing himself, afraid of scandal, Marilyn turns to his brother, Attorney General Robert F. Kennedy, Bobby. The relationship, whether romantic, platonic, or something complicated in between, it becomes intense. They talk for hours. She calls him constantly. And according to FBI reports, Marilyn starts sharing things she shouldn't know. Details about foreign policy, about Cuba, about secret operations. Bobby Kennedy is not just the Attorney General. He's one of the most powerful men in America, intimately involved in classified matters of national security. And he's having lengthy, private conversations with a woman the FBI has been tracking for suspected communist sympathies. The file explodes in size. Agents intensify surveillance, phone taps, informants. They document Marilyn becoming increasingly erratic, unstable, desperately trying to maintain relationships with men who are pulling away from her. She threatens, she cries, she talks about going public, about telling the world what she knows. Quick question, have you ever had a secret that was eating you alive? A burden you carried alone because revealing it would destroy everything, not just for you, but for others? A truth so dangerous that simply possessing it made you a target? Let us know in the comments, because that's where Marilyn Monroe finds herself in the summer of 1962. She knows things. Intimate details about the most powerful men in America. Classified information whispered during vulnerable moments. And she's trapped, alone, terrified. Her career is collapsing. Her mental health is fracturing. Studio executives are furious about her unreliability. She's fired from Something's Got to Give, her final film. After repeated absences, she's increasingly isolated, paranoid, convinced her phones are tapped, which they are, convinced she's being followed, which she is. She tells friends that the Kennedys have abandoned her, that powerful people want her silent. The FBI file from June and July 1962 reads like a countdown. Memo after memo documenting a woman spiraling. But they're not documenting with sympathy. They're documenting with calculation, with cold assessment of risk. Because in the political arithmetic of 1962, Marilyn Monroe has become a problem that needs solving. August 1962, Los Angeles. Marilyn's home in Brentwood. She's alone most of the time now. Her housekeeper, Eunice Murray, watches her carefully. Too carefully, some will later say. The house feels wrong, tense. Like something terrible is building. Marilyn makes phone calls, dozens of them, trying to reach Bobby Kennedy, who won't take her calls anymore. Trying to reach friends. Her voice on these calls, when friends later describe it, there's desperation, fear. She mentions strange cars outside her home, men watching. She's not imagining it. The FBI file confirms surveillance at her residence during this period. She knows too much. That's what several friends will later report she said in her final days. She knows too much, and she's becoming a liability. August 3rd, a Friday. Marilyn receives a visitor. The FBI file has the date, but the visitor's name is redacted, blacked out. One of many redactions that make the file read like a conspiracy theorist's fever dream. Who visited her? Why is that name still classified decades after her death? She makes another call that evening. To Peter Lawford, Kennedy's brother-in-law. She sounds drugged, slurred. She says goodbye in a way that frightens him. He'll later testify that she said something about the others, about people who are coming. He tries to reach her again, no answer. But to understand what happens next, you need to know what the FBI knew, what those 600 pages actually contain. Buried in the file are memos about national security risks, about Maryland's knowledge of the Bay of Pigs invasion, about Cuba, about secret programs the Kennedy administration was running. One memo, partially redacted, discusses Maryland's possession of sensitive information regarding foreign policy decisions at the highest level. Another memo references recordings, audio surveillance that captured conversations between Marilyn and Bobby Kennedy, conversations where classified information was discussed. The FBI had evidence that state secrets were being shared with a woman they considered politically unreliable. Years earlier, in Hollywood's golden age, studios could bury scandals. A starlet pregnant out of wedlock? The studio arranged a quiet abortion and a cover story. A leading man arrested for drunk driving? The police report disappeared. The system protected its assets because damaged goods couldn't sell tickets. But this wasn't a Hollywood scandal. This was a national security crisis at the highest levels of government. And the machinery that protects presidents operates by different rules than the machinery that protects movie stars. August 4th, Saturday, early evening, Marilyn is at home. Eunice Murray is there. Dr. Ralph Greenson, her psychiatrist, visits. The official timeline says he leaves around 7 p.m. Marilyn retires to her bedroom. Sometime that night, something happens. The official story? Marilyn takes an overdose of Nembutal and chloral hydrate, 40 capsules, maybe more. She dies alone in her locked bedroom. Her body is discovered hours later, suicide. The tragic, predictable end of a troubled woman who couldn't escape her demons. But the FBI file suggests something else. Witness statements buried in those 600 pages tell a different story. Peter Lawford receives a call that night, not from Marilyn, but about Marilyn. He rushes to the house. He's not alone. Others arrive, men in suits, men who shouldn't be at a private residence where a woman has just died. This is the part that was kept secret for decades. What those men were doing at Marilyn's house, what they were removing. Multiple witnesses report seeing an ambulance arrive at Marilyn's home while she's still alive, that she's taken to a hospital, then brought back. That time of death is manipulated, that the scene is staged. These accounts are documented in FBI witness interviews, but they never make it into the official police investigation. Why? Because by the time the police arrive, powerful people have already controlled the narrative. Marilyn's phone records from her final days, they disappear. Her diary, which friends confirm existed and which she filled with details about her relationships, it's never found. The FBI file documents its existence but claims it was not recovered. A woman who was under constant surveillance suddenly dies, and all physical evidence of her most intimate secrets vanishes. Silence, pure silence. The kind of silence that requires coordination, power, resources. The coroner rules suicide. The police close the case. The FBI file remains classified. For decades, nobody knows what those 600 pages contain. Official Hollywood and Washington present a unified story. Marilyn Monroe, tragic victim of her own mental illness and addiction. Sad but simple. But the machinery that created that silence, it's visible in the file. FBI memos from the days immediately following her death reference containment protocols and information security measures. Other agencies are involved. The CIA's name appears, heavily redacted, references to asset protection and security sweep. What would you have done in that moment if you were powerful enough to bury the truth, and that truth threatened not just your career, but national security? Would you? Comment below, because someone made that choice, multiple someones. And in that moment, Marilyn Monroe stopped being a person. She became a problem, a security risk, a loose end, and loose ends get tied up. The day after Marilyn's death, men in suits visit her home again. Officially, they're investigating. Unofficially, according to FBI documentation, they're sanitizing, ensuring that nothing remains that could compromise national security or powerful reputations. Her psychiatrist, Dr. Greenson, gives contradictory statements. Her housekeeper, Eunice Murray, changes her story multiple times over the years. In a BBC interview decades later, Murray admits, "Why, at my age, do I still have to cover this up?" Then catches herself, stops talking. Cover up what? She never says. But the implication hangs in the air, frozen in time. The FBI file remains classified for decades. When the Freedom of Information Act finally forces its release in the 1980s, it emerges heavily redacted. 600 pages, but hundreds of lines blacked out. Entire sections removed, names deleted. On page after page, the only visible words are classified and national security. What's revealed is disturbing enough: the extent of surveillance, the obsessive documentation of her political associations, the cold assessment of her as a security risk. But what's hidden, those blacked-out sections, they suggest something darker. One declassified memo from August 20th, 1962, 2 weeks after her death, references successful containment of security breach. Another mentions elimination of physical evidence per protocol. The language is bureaucratic, clinical, but the implications are chilling. Was it coincidence? Or something darker? Let us know what you think in the comments, because here's what we know for certain. Marilyn Monroe died knowing secrets that could destroy political careers. She died after being tracked by the FBI for years. She died after threatening to go public. She died, and immediately, a coordinated effort buried evidence and controlled the narrative. The official story says suicide, mental illness, barbiturates, tragedy. But the FBI file, those 600 pages of surveillance, assessment, and cold calculation, it tells a story of a woman who became dangerous to powerful men, who knew too much, who wouldn't stay quiet. And in the paranoid machinery of Cold War America, where national security justified almost any action, where presidents authorized assassinations of foreign leaders, where the FBI conducted illegal surveillance and harassment campaigns against American citizens, in that world, what happened to one troubled actress? Some believe it was suicide, a woman broken by Hollywood and abandoned by powerful lovers. Others say it was murder, a hit disguised as overdose, ordered by men protecting presidents. The truth? It's buried in those redacted sections, in the pages that remain classified even now, more than 60 years later, in the names that are still blacked out, in the evidence that vanished. Fast forward to today. Historians and researchers have spent decades trying to piece together what really happened. New witnesses have come forward. Deathbed confessions have added details. But the full truth, what the FBI really knew, what they really did, it remains hidden. Because some secrets are too dangerous to tell, even now. Marilyn Monroe died believing she mattered to powerful men, believing she was more than just a fantasy, more than just a body on screen. She wanted to be taken seriously, respected, loved for her mind, not just her beauty. Instead, she became a file. 600 pages of surveillance, a security risk, a problem to be managed and ultimately silenced. The tragedy isn't just her death, it's that the system that created her, Hollywood's star-making machine, fed her directly into another system. The machinery of power that protects presidents and national security at any cost. She was valuable as long as she stayed quiet, stayed beautiful, stayed in her place. The moment she stepped outside those boundaries, the moment she threatened to expose the truth, she became disposable. That's what those 600 pages reveal, beyond the redactions and classifications. They reveal how expendable even the brightest star becomes when she threatens the men who believe they own the sun. Marilyn wanted to be seen, really seen, not as an object, but as a human being with thoughts, opinions, worth beyond her physical beauty. The FBI saw her. They saw her clearly. But what they saw was a threat, and they documented that threat with cold precision until the night she died. Then they buried the documentation for decades, because the truth about how America treated Marilyn Monroe, how the government surveilled her, how powerful men used and discarded her, how her death was sanitized and controlled, that truth is disturbing, more disturbing than any conspiracy theory, more tragic than any Hollywood scandal, because it's real. So here's the question for you. If you could access one classified file, any secret document the government keeps hidden, which would you choose? What truth would you risk everything to know? Comment below and let us know, which untold story should we cover next? The mysterious death of Natalie Wood, or the FBI's surveillance of Frank Sinatra's mob connections? And unfortunately, they don't make women like Marilyn Monroe anymore.